Yo, how's it going, everybody? In today's video, I have something a little bit off meta for you guys, and that is a Blood Surge Necro. Now, I'm just gonna start off right out of the gate here. This is not better than Bone Spear. Bone Spear is just absolutely broken right now. But if you guys want to play something a little bit different, and I think this is slightly better at just like mob clearing in like the mid to low tier nightmares, or just like base content if you're doing like Hell Tides, whatever, I think it's a really good option for just speed clearing some things. And all of the gameplay that you guys are seeing in this video is me with terrible gear. I've never had worse gear luck on any of my characters so far. So this build can be way better than what you guys are seeing right now. And I will point out what aspects can make that even better. But with this build, I wanted to focus around getting as many Novas as I possibly could. So I am using the Deathspeaker's Pendant, the unique amulet for our Necromancer, and that way all of our minions are actually going to be sending out Novas. Now the base damage on it is very low. When you guys are just doing normal blood surges, they're not going to do all that much damage. They can do a little bit if you have a lot of your bonuses stacked up. But where it really gets strong is when you do a blood surge overpower. These damages out of these Novas can hit in the hundreds of thousands, 300, 400,000 right now. And like I said, I have terrible gear. This is going to be able to get way up there into probably like the 600k pluses per minion Nova. And then obviously you have your own as well. So there is a lot of damage to go out. Basically, when I set it up properly, one bursting tier 35 to tier 40 bosses, depending on which boss it is and all that stuff. But otherwise, you can just nuke these bosses if you set it up correctly. Now, normally with a Blood Surge build, you're going to want to really focus into attack speed so you can cycle those overpowers quicker. But one issue with doing so is you just miss out on a ton of damage. And no matter what you do, even with full essence cost reduction and all this stuff, Blood Surge still costs a lot to be able to actually like fully nuke the screen with the overpower. And it just ends up hurting you a lot more as you are spamming it. And the only way to really sustain it is in very dense dungeons, but that's not very common right now. There's a couple, like if you're doing like a spider den, then you can be perfectly fine. But for most other dungeons, you're really just going to want to focus on maximizing those overpowers that you get. So we're not going super into attack speed. We have a little bit on our gloves, but for mostly this build, we're going to be using a ton of damage bonuses so we can maximize that overpower damage and just make sure we kill everything on the screen. Also, overpower is just a very weird thing that doesn't get a lot of your bonuses. Like it doesn't get crit, it doesn't get vulnerable and all sorts of other stuff. But there is one thing that we can do with the build to make it kind of get crits in a way. And that's going to make it much, much stronger and why we're hitting for so high on these bosses. As always, I'll have the written version of this build over on our website, dpscheck.gg. So hopefully you guys want to check that out. There'll be a link in the description. But let's go ahead and fully jump into this build. As always, we're going to start off with our skills. So moving from left to right, I have a Blood Mist on. This is great for just surviving. It's our really only unstoppable method. It's also really nice for getting our damage started, just because we're going to be doing corpse explosions while we're inside of that, which is going to help out. And then we're going to be using corpse explosion as well, but with the Blood Mist one, there doesn't need to be any corpses on the ground already. You can just proc it, run in towards the boss, group of elites, whatever, and you're good to go. But then corpse explosion is what we're going to use to keep that damage up as the fight goes on. Corpse tendrils is our main way of dealing a ton of damage and obviously grouping enemies. And we're also going to be spawning a bunch of blood orbs. So this is going to be how we stay at full health and we can maintain our blood surge cycles. And also it's going to help keep our minions alive on top of all of that. And then we're going to be using Bone Storm. This is just an overall great skill. It is on a slightly longer cooldown because we are using a two-handed weapon. So make sure you guys are saving this for the big pack of elites and bosses. But you should be good to go if you use it in those specific scenarios. But this is going to give us a ton of damage reduction and also 20% crit chance while it's active. So with Corpse Tendrils and Bone Storm, you're going to have almost guaranteed crits depending on what kind of gear you have rolled. And then we're going to do Raised Skeleton. We're going to have 6 skeletons with this build. And they're all going to be spawning corpses for you because we're going to be using the Reaper versions. We'll get to that in a little bit. But this is how we're going to do that. Just spam this to raise them if they end up dying or if you want to heal them a little bit. But mostly you're going to be using the Corpse Explosion to consume your corpses, but just cycle between the two. And then obviously, like I said, Blood Surge, we're going to be focusing on the overpower side of this and getting it to hit as hard as possible. Now going through the skill tree, we are not using a basic skill, so just put 2 points into any of the skills so you can move down. And then in here, we're going to max out Blood Surge and then grab Paranormal Blood Surge for that overpower on the every 5 healthy hits of it. We're going to be maxing out Hued Flesh so we can create more corpses. More corpses means better essence sustain for us and also just more options to use corpse tendrils on. And then we're going to be putting 1 point into the Unliving Energy so we can get up to Imperfectly Balanced. You can take this off if you're having essence issues, but for the most part, you should be good to go once you get a big enough essence pool. Then Blood Mist, and we're going to be grabbing Ghastly Blood Mist so we can leave behind corpses as we go. And we're going to be putting just 1 point into Corpse Explosion. We just need the shadow effect from this. This is the whole reason we're into Corpse Explosion, is just for the shadow to trigger our key passive and also one of our aspects. And then Skeletal Warrior Mastery so we can help keep them alive. And then Grim Harvest and Fueled by Death. Also Death's Embrace, we're going to get that damage reduction and deal a little bit more damage. And then in this blood section down here, we're going to be grabbing a lot so we can get while below 50% life, you receive 30% more healing from all sources. So this is great if you guys end up getting injured and you happen to run over one of your blood orbs. It's going to put you almost all the way back up to the top, which is very helpful. Then maxing out Coalesce Blood. I'm actually missing +2 on our Deathspeaker's Pendant, which kind of stinks, so I'm missing a little bit of damage here. And then 3 points into Tides of Blood and 3 points into Transfusion so we can help keep our minions alive. Our minions, like I said, are a big portion of our damage, so the longer they're up, the better damage we're going to end up doing. And then just 1 point into Drain Vitality for a little bit extra Fortify. Then we're going to be putting some points into Corpse Tendrils and going up to Blighted Corpse Tendrils so we can get to those Blood Orbs. And then Necrotic Carapace. This is going to work great with our Blood Mist. It's going to be guaranteed the 18%. And then also all of our Reaper skeletons are going to be creating corpses for us and giving us a ton of Fortify. So you'll be pretty much full all the time. Then we do just have kind of like 1 extra point, so I did put it into Bonded in Essence so it can help keep the skeletons alive just a little bit more, but feel free to move this one wherever you see fit. But otherwise, Bone Storm, maxing that out. And then finally, our key passive is going to be Shadow Blight, so we can deal that 10% X and also trigger one of our biggest damage sources in our aspects, which we're going to move to right now. So starting off with our aspects before we move into like the passives and everything on my gear. On our helmet, I'm running the number of skeletal warriors we can raise is increased by 2. This is more novas and in turn more damage that we can put out. On our chest piece, I have Disobedience. We can stack up our armor. This is going to stack up to 100 very quickly with how many enemies we're hitting. Also, we're going to be using Blood Surge's Nova Echoes, so that's helpful. When that overpowers, it's going to be a ton of extra damage for free. And then we're going to be using Consuming a Corpse, has a chance to spawn a Blood Orb for extra survivability, fortify, everything. It's very helpful. And then on our boots, we're going to have Blood Mist triggers Corpse Explosion. This is where we can get the shadow on the ground at the start of a fight. So we can get one of our other aspects over here, which is where you deal massive increased damage for 6 seconds after the Shadow Blight key passive damages enemies for 10 times. So basically with Blood Mist, if you use this once you get close to the enemies and it starts dropping the corpses and they're in the shadow, by the time you're out of Blood Mist, this should be active. So that's usually what my combo is on like a boss. I'll start with the Blood Mist, and then by the time I'm out, I have the 120%. Obviously, it's 85% in my case. So like I was saying earlier, I'm missing a ton of damage on this build. I'm missing so much. And then on our two-handed, this is where we're going to be putting our Corpse Tendrils aspect, where we get the crit chance and the crit damage. Normally, Overpower cannot crit, but it does work with this aspect. So we can get that multiplicative crit, which is a ton of extra damage for the Overpowers. And then we're going to be using, obviously, the Deathspeaker's Pendant, so the minions can have that Nova. Just focus on the passives on it. The base damage roll doesn't really matter all that much for the Overpowers, which is the main thing that we care about. So just look for good Overpower damage and also Coalesce Blood. And then on our other ring, as well at full life, Blood Orbs will grant us Essence. Now I have the minimum roll. I have the Codex roll. I've never seen this anything higher than like 11 or 12. So we can get much better sustain once you guys are able to get that to 20, because you're creating so many Blood Orbs, especially in very busy areas with all your Corpse Tendrils and Corpse Explosions. There's going to be a ton laying around for you, so you can just spam those Novas. And then that's basically it for our aspects. Now moving on over to the actual gear itself for its passives. You're going to want a lot of cooldown, max life. Max life is very important for survivability and also our overpowers. maximum essence is very important so we can have a bigger pool. And no matter where you're at in your Blood Surge counter, you can basically guarantee in that pool that you'll see at least one overpower. So that's why maximum essence is very important. And then otherwise on your other armors, just make sure you have max life and then any sort of like your damage reductions, anything like that. Fortified Gen isn't terrible. It's not my favorite, but it's not that bad with all the blood orbs that we're picking up. You're going to get a lot from that with one of our glyphs. Otherwise on the gloves, Blood Surge, attack speed, crit chance, and also the lucky hit to restore primary resource is okay. A lot of our blood skills have low lucky hit chance, but it can add up with how many enemies you're hitting, so it could help your sustain a little bit. And then also maximum minion life is something that's going to be very important if you plan to push up higher nightmares. So you can get that, I believe, on all the pieces that you can get maximum life on. So if you want to look for that instead of like Fortified Gen, armor, whatever, you guys can try to get that roll. And then on our boots, just look for movement speed after killing an elite. That way you guys can just get from enemy to enemy. But the main things here are going to be ranks to corpse tendrils because that is cooldown for them. You're going to be wanting to spam those for the blood orbs and the extra damage. Also, the essence cost reduction is big, so we can spam more novas. On the weapons, you're basically just be looking for like overpower damage or any of the general things. I don't know if the overpowers get the additive crit damages, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. And like I said, it doesn't get vulnerable. I believe it only gets the multiplicative crits. I'm not 100% sure though. Like I said, overpower, very weird in this game. And then on our rings, I almost have the god roll. You guys are going to be looking for maximum essence, crit chance, overpower damage, and then also maximum life. That's going to be your main thing right there. The more max life you have, the better your overpowers are going to do. So get rid of the fortified gens that I have on here for max life and you'll be good to go. Quickly looking at our Book of the Dead here with our skeletal warriors, we're going to be using the Reapers and them having a chance to form a corpse. This is great for our fortify and also just having more targets to gain essence on and also trigger corpse tendrils or the blights. So that's very helpful. And then we're going to be sacrificing our mage and golem. With the mages, you're going to be wanting to sacrifice the bone mages. So you get that 40% X overpower damage. That's going to be a big bonus to your damage. And then on the golems, you can do the multiplicative crit down here with the iron golem. Or you can do extra max life if you want a little bit more of that. You can also do the attack speed, but I don't think that's super necessary. I would stick between these two right here. Now moving on over to our Paragon board. I don't have it set up exactly how I'd like. It's okay right now. There's some changes that are going to be made, so don't worry too much about following the path that I do exactly here. We're just going to be focusing on the glyphs that I'm using at the moment and also the legendary nodes. So right now on my starting board, I have control for the increased damage to the stunned enemies. So when we pull them in with the corpse tendrils, we're going to do more. And also as the corpse tendrils is forming, they're going to be slowing enemies around it. So you can get that 10% too. And then our first legendary node that I grabbed was Bloodbath for the 50% X overpower damage. That's going to be a ton of extra damage. And then another big one here is going to be the critical strikes deal 22% X increased damage to enemies that are not healthy. Basically, they get hit once, and then every other damage that follows them is going to deal that 22% more. And we're going to be critting almost all the time, so that's going to be active a lot. Also up here, I have Flesh Eater, so consuming 5 corpses grants 40% X for 6 seconds. You guys are going to be consuming corpses constantly, so that's almost always going to be active. And then moving on over, I have Scent of Death for mainly the damage reduction. The no corpses nearby is rarely going to happen. I mainly just do this for the survivability. And then Blood Drinker is our other survivability thing down here. This is where our blood orbs are going to give us Fortify. And then moving down, I have Dominate. This is our biggest glyph. And if you guys put it in the Blood Begets Blood, you can get a ton of extra willpower nodes in here to stack it up really high. And with all the multiplicative overpower that we have, this is going to be much higher than the 158% you guys see right here. So there's a ton of willpower here, and that's what I'm going to be specking towards right now with my extra points that I'm getting. And the only other thing that I have in this Paragon board is up here in the bone tree. Now, we aren't using anything else in here except for basically the maximum essence and the essence on kill. That's going to be a big bonus and allow you guys to sustain your blood surges in big groups. As you guys are spamming it, you're going to be getting a ton of kills. So I said anything with like spiders is going to work very well with this build because all the spiderlings are going to die very easily and give you a ton of essence for each one of those kills and allow you guys to just spam. Yeah, that's our current Blood Surge build. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's pretty cool, the boss kills that you can get when you set it up properly and you get the practice down. And I'm very excited to see where this can go once I actually get proper gear. I can do somewhere in like the 40s Nightmare right now with very bad gear. So I can easily see that pushing up into the 50s and 60s once I get a little bit higher level and the better gear. So I'm excited to try that out as time goes on. And if anything big changes, I'll make sure to update it on the website. And also I will probably make an updated video. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. But anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic day and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.